kicking off our first icebreaker question of the show is the WrestleMania plans of the final boss. The Rock appeared on SmackDown this past Friday, where there was a lot of weird dialogue between him and Cody. But he seems to have a fixture on what his role is for this year's WrestleMania. In terms of that impact, what do you think about that, Ty? What do you think about like Rock's impact going into WrestleMania?
It's I guess the best way to put it is that regardless of how anyone feels, when it comes down to The Rock at WrestleMania, it's basically the philosophy of business, right? It's not about how you feel, it's about how many people are gonna watch. In the initial at least. Like a lot of people I like when I saw that The Rock was being announced for SmackDown Thursday night, I kind of like rolled my eyes and groaned a bit. Not because I don't like seeing The Rock, but more so because I was like, here we go. This is where like all the attention's gonna go. This is where all the this is where everything's going to cycle in and funnel into. It's gonna lead to a lot of eyes. WrestleMania is no longer just it's the biggest wrestling event of the year. It always will be, but it is also the biggest party of the year for a lot of like in terms of wrestling trying to gain as much mainstream attention as possible. You want to put the biggest cards up, of course. That's what WrestleMania has kind of championed itself for doing, the biggest cards of the year usually. But it's also how much attention can you drive now that it's a superpower. It's no longer just the biggest pay-per-view, it's a superpower. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, here we go. They're going to put every single bit of everything into this because they want us to watch. And
Yeah,
people were complaining. They were like, the road to WrestleMania feels kind of empty compared to last year. And it's like, well, when last year's Mania was built for 2 years, of course it's going to feel kind of empty right now, But this is kind of what I expected to happen.
Um, Staying on that topic, man, what did you think about like what he said to Cody? Obviously, the quote that everybody's been I don't know, basically been going focused on the most is the fact that he asked for Cody's soul. Like they had a dialogue in terms of saying, "And I don't want your championship. I want you to be my champion. I want you to be." Since The Rock, quote unquote, owns the WWE based off that dialogue and whatever it was saying, in terms of the business aspect, The Rock kind of made a overture to Cody and asking him something, and obviously it was a pause-worthy moment for a lot of people, but he still asked him the question, in terms of what he expects and wants from Cody. So what do you think about that exchange and what that could mean going down the road towards WrestleMania?
Well, let me say first things first. That was a very long TV segment.
Yeah,
The first half of it was what I expected, promoting WrestleMania for next year because they were in New Orleans, which Jesus, New Orleans, 3 WrestleManias in 10 years is insane. Okay. And that's coming from New Yorkers. Like, we need you guys to like not, I'm happy for y'all, but not like we need to spread the wealth across this country. Two, yeah, when the take your soul line, first thing I thought of was him getting chokeslammed by the Undertaker at Mania last year. Actually, that was kind of the irony of it for me. But I get what he means. We got a lot of gooners online who took that the absolute wrong way. But I get what they're trying to do. Like, yeah, the argument's been, Cody's already a corporate champion. He's already a figurehead. He's already doing everything that the WWE wants him to do. And I think that based on the story that they want to tell, that's the point. Everybody knows that Cody has put the company, he stuck his neck out for the company, which I'm sure people will take in a lot of different ways in terms of Cody's recent history. But he is their face. He is proud to be their face. He's been called their quarterback. So when everyone's hearing The Rock go, I want you to be my champion, they're sitting here like, what else do you want from this guy? And I think that's the point. Rock says, you're here and you're doing great here, constantly complimented him and said, I want to take you up here to this stratosphere, to a place that you couldn't even fathom, because he is one of the most famous people on the earth. And there is some credibility to what he's saying, and at least in terms of how he's trying to spin the narrative. So the idea of him becoming a truly corporate champion as opposed to just being a good representative or the main representative for the company is an interesting story they could tell based off of that. I get what they're trying to do. I'm not a big fan of it, mainly because like I think at this point I just want to see a lot of these like residual stories that have spawned off from the bloodline end so we can finally get a good clean slate so we can make some new stories. Like some truly new stories where we get more people to eat at the table. But I see what they're trying to do. Let's just see if it's actually going to be effective. Because I know some people are saying Rock's going to have a representative on his behalf. And people are like, how come this match isn't building to Rock and Cody? Why can't we do that? And it's like, first of all, The Rock could lie. All right, it's not as though he's telling the whole truth here. He could easily lie. But let's say we take his words at face value. Was good, y'all. Was good, family. If we take his words at face value, there are a number of people that could fit that role for Rock where you just sit there and go, how dare you? Like if Cena went corporate, I've seen that cycled around. If Cena's the representative for Rock. I mean, Rock was trying to help Cena in Hollywood, so this might be Cena's way of paying him back. If CM Punk were the representative for Rock, that would be very, very interesting, mainly because it goes against everything we know about Punk's character. You know, so you never really know. But I'm not crazy hopeful for right now. I will give it the benefit of the doubt for right now. But again, I just want to see new stories that are not tied directly to the after effects of the bloodline right now.
I mean, I'm with you on that. Like, I kind of felt like I was going into next week in my mind thinking that CM Punk was definitely winning, and we're going to get that match between him and Cody at Mania, so he can get his main event. And then here comes The Rock, basically kind of like changing or shaking the framework of what Cody's road to WrestleMania looks like. And I mean, I kind of agree because it's like there's so much that you do have at your disposal, especially with Damian Priest now going to SmackDown and different stars coming in and out. It's just rough because it's like WWE used to be good at if you're gonna get a certain type of talent or during WrestleMania season, you used to basically find ways to better compartmentalize like what you expected out of them and still focus on your main objective going to Mania. This year, however, is a little different because it's like anything can happen, but at the same time, not enough is being put to showcase that in different areas.
It's an uncomfortable kind of unpredictable.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like for me. It's like when people want things to be unpredictable in a sport where things seem very telegraphed and and like you can kind of see what's happening from a mile away. When it becomes unpredictable, there are two kinds. The type of unpredictable where you don't know what's going to happen, but you have a good feeling about where it's going. And then the unpredictable where you're unsure of where it's going and you're scared of the different possibilities because most of the ones you could think of are bad or they're not that favorable. And I think in this situation, it's so unnerving that it's leaning more in that direction. Not completely in that direction, but it's leaning more in that direction. And, who knows what The Rock's like entrance stopped? Who knows what storylines it halted? Who knows what plans it might interfere with that were already existing or were penciled in? I mean, it did alter the state of that women's match that was supposed to be on the show because it originally got taken off and then it got turned into what we saw. And that's just an immediate. But in terms of the long term, I don't know. It feels like some of the stuff they could have used for Mania, they blew off on the Raw from Netflix, the initial Raw from Netflix as well. So I don't know. And it's not a very comfortable, I don't know. So I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's like, yo, man, people outside of the bloodline starting to get a little bit of shine, and then all of a sudden you see Rock come in, and even Jacob, in his own way, kind of straying away from his own, that situation. Like a lot of good things were basically being pieced together, but because of how the way Mania is being booked right now, or as we're going towards Mania, very, very murky. And right now, Trips is, for good reason, is getting called out in terms of his decisions, in terms of the pacing, in terms of the prioritizing, in terms of the order of how it should be, in terms of the storylines right now. I just feel like it should be better, especially from his standpoint. It could be better, Obviously, you know, we're going to talk about like what solutions we can have in order to, you know, circumvent that. But at the end of the day, it's just like if you've been around long enough, especially in Trips' position, if you've been around long enough, you see how things have worked at this point, especially from a production standpoint. I would think should know better in terms of how to better pace everything that's going on the main roster, at least from the main roster perspective, because you've seen enough to know better. And right now, having Road Dogg doing SmackDown as one of the head writers, it's not a good start.
I mean, to give him the benefit of the doubt, Road Dogg was under Vince, where they were writing things for him, and he was ripping stuff up. So we don't know what Road Dogg's full potential as a writer could be. You know, so we have to kind of give time on that one too. I'm not the biggest fan of the guy from like interviews and some of his comments on the business, but in the same token, you never know how that'll go. You know, you just gotta kind of have to wait and see. But I feel you though.
My dog. All right, man. Let's pivot